Hey YouTube, this is Robert Ness816, and today we're going to be bleaching video game consoles. So what I have here is a slightly darker colored PlayStation, and what I'm going to do here is try to make it as close to this one as possible. So this camera's not really picking up the color variations here, which is sort of minimal. But what I'm going to do here is disassemble this PlayStation and basically try to make it as close to this color as possible using this simple product here, just bleach and peroxide. And then I'm going to use filler as basically just water to act as a filler. So this pretty much is going to cost you about $5, and it works as good as, almost as good as women's hair bleach, and I would say about as good as Retro Bright. Retro Bright is something that's very expensive. It works, but it's just, I don't know. So bleach, hydrogen peroxide, and water is all that you're going to use. And you should be able to return your console back to like new condition by using these two products. I also have a Super Nintendo that I'm going to be bleaching as well later on in the video that's a little bit more yellowed than the PlayStation console is, but this camera's not really doing a good job of picking it up, but it's sort of darker in color. It's not gray anymore, but this camera might be picking it up as such. So maybe if I do this one, depends on the lighting, I suppose, but yeah, I mean, this one is basically the original color. It matches perfectly with the controllers. And then this one is, I would say, about 2 shades darker, but my camera seems to be exposing for it correctly, which is funny, but whatever. Maybe when I go outside, it'll be a different story. Alright guys, so we have the PlayStation top fully disassembled. I've taken every piece out of it. The reason why I've done that is because bleach is incredibly corrosive to the screws, so they will rust and basically break off if you leave the bleach, or if you leave the screws left on the system, especially the spring here that opens and closes the top. So these are the components that I want to try and bleach. The buttons are fine, just the top CD cover and the top cover for the console I wanted to bleach. Really shouldn't be that difficult. The bottom of my console in particular is fine. It's not really bleach, it's only the top, so that's all I'm going to focus on. With the PlayStation console, you can actually dunk the entire bottom portion of the shell, the plastic part, into bleach and not worry about the labels coming off. Those labels are made out of like a thin, metally-ish type material. And basically they don't bleach. They seem to be fine. With Super Nintendo systems, like if you have a newer Super Nintendo with, say, a label on it, that label would need to be removed because the bleach might actually whiten that label. So I would remove that label with a razor blade, and usually they come off pretty easily. But yeah, so this is not the Super Nintendo I'm going to be working on. It's going to be another one that does actually have that sticker. So yeah, so we'll get back to the Super Nintendo in another video. And just so you guys know too, I'm not going to be focusing on taking the system apart, putting it back together again. Just kind of a tutorial showing you guys an alternative method to bleaching consoles. It does work for me. It is not going to bring back every console. It's only for systems that have slight yellowing to, I would say, maybe moderate yellowing. Anything that is really deeply yellowed, like when you get Super Nintendo consoles or even PlayStation consoles that are like disgustingly colored yellow where the plastic is, chipping off and everything. Those consoles, it's iffy if you can get anything. Usually you'll get like a lighter color yellow, like a bleached whitish yellow appearance with those, which is, it's better than nothing. But when you take apart a system like that, especially a Super Nintendo where the plastic is like a deep piss colored yellow, I can almost guarantee that you do run the risk of breaking the plastic. So it really is a gamble, and I honestly would not even attempt to take apart a system like that. Your best bet is just to leave it alone, and that's it. If you do take it apart, um, there's a good chance that you're opening up a can of worms there, and it'll basically take a console that's, I would say, ruined, and basically finish off the job, and you'll be left with a circuit board and some RF shields. So if you have one that's really deeply yellowed, and maybe you have a chip in the corner or something like that, I wouldn't bother with it. Basically, if you really want something like that, find clean a Super Nintendo, find a broken one, and just buy the shell. Do that and just swap the board out if you can. But basically start over again is what I would do if it bugs you that much. So yeah, that's just my little word of warning. PlayStation consoles, I don't think they have the same issue with bromine as the Super Nintendo did. So with these, they do get really yellowed, but it's not going to be like, I don't think they get as brittle. They do chip, but I think that's probably just from being like bounced around over time. So yeah, that's that. So let's take this outside right now and see what type of results we get. Alright, so our PlayStation is submerged. I used the entire bottle of peroxide. Then I basically submerge the console in water just until the water goes above the console, and then I fill the rest of the way up with bleach. And usually I'll use about, I want to say about a quart of bleach to a quart of peroxide. You do have to be careful with that too, because the peroxide will bubble up pretty erratically too when you add the bleach to it, so you gotta make sure that you don't go crazy. These rocks are just weighing down the console so that the plastic doesn't come out of the water. And I'll move these rocks around a little bit here and there as the the process progresses. So I have a timer set on my watch here for 2 hours. And once this is expired, then I will take the console out of this solution here and rinse it off thoroughly with soap and warm water. Keeping in mind too, just to move, if you do decide to use rocks like I did, to move them around a little bit this way, so you get even coverage here with the bleaching process. Alright, so we got some sunlight going on here, so that's probably going to help to speed up the bleaching process a little bit. Still got a decent amount of time left here. But yeah, sunlight does help, admittedly. It does speed it up, so if you do have a sunny day to put this outside, and definitely take advantage of that. Alright guys, so here's the finished product. I apologize about the dryer noise, just trying to do some wash at the same time while making a YouTube video. But anyways, so here's what it looks like. And we can see the color difference now between the inside and outside. So this was not really bleached, but the top shell was. So this is looking like how it originally did. The back cover, I actually did put in the bleach as well, but it didn't really change because I didn't really actually have anything to submerge it in the bleach, and also kind of floated under the cover, so whatever. But yeah, so the console for the most part looks like how it did back in 1995. The underside is still the bleached, or not bleached, the darker color. And then the other side is the original color, what it used to look like. So, not really too big of a deal. And flipping over the console, you can see how the underside of it is clearly a darker shade of gray compared to the rest of it. So would I ever go back with this one and do the other parts of it? Probably not, because you know it's a PlayStation, so I'm not going to be too picky about it. I just kind of want it to look pretty there on my shelf, when I'm using it. So I'd say job well done, and I'm just going to let this dry off, and I'll reassemble it later on. So with the Super Nintendo, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'll make a separate video of that, showing you how I go through it as I'm struggling to put this back together, whatever. But yeah, so stay tuned, and hopefully there'll be another video with the Super Nintendo shell, which I'm actually going to use the same batch of bleach and peroxide on. Alright guys, so here is the finished product, all back together again, and there you go. So the top now matches the bottom. Everything, for the most part, looks like how it's supposed to again. Except for the back, but who cares? Not gonna really nitpick here, because again, it is a PlayStation, so I'm just happy to have one that's clean and it works pretty good. Even though if I had to fool around with the laser on this one or whatever, but this particular console is actually free, so as long as it works good, does everything that it's supposed to do, then hey, it's all that matters, right? Thanks for watching, guys.